Evelyn Aunt Miss Mack Castelow. A short history of her life. Beginning. Evelyn Mack Castelow was born in Effingham, Darlington, South Carolina, in December 1889 to Dr. James Mack, D.J., and Hattie G. She was the second girl and sixth of 13 children born to D.J. and Hattie. She was also the last of her siblings to be born in Effingham, as the family moved to St. Stephen, South Carolina, a year after she was born. During the early 1900s, she and her siblings enjoyed life on the farm. The joy of books, farming, and religion, as taught by their parents, filled their lives. Through the 1890s, as the family grew, DJ saved money that eventually led to the purchase of 222 acres of land. This land and how well their kids were raised was the legacy that DJ and Hattie left. About early years. During Evelyn's early years, there wasn't much money available to provide her with the formal education that some of her younger siblings got. This greatly saddened her. During 1900, when Evelyn was 10, her mother, Hattie G., became too sick to manage the house. As the only girl old enough to help, she had to take over the household chores as the family could not afford to pay for help. Her older sister Leela had passed away around age 3. Beulah was a 1-year-old, and Esther wasn't born until 1902. Life was difficult for Evelyn. In 1908, at the age of 19, Evelyn married 20-year-old James Castelow. He was born in Mount Carmel, Abbeville, South Carolina. After her mom passed away in 1916, Evelyn and James moved to Augusta. It's not known why they moved there, but there were other Castelows living there who James may have been related to. James started work as a gardener. Later, and for most of his life, he worked at the local Veterans Hospital. He passed away in 1952. Evelyn helps her sisters. As of 1917, Evelyn had not been blessed with children. Around 1920, she brought her 18-year-old sister Esther to Augusta to live with them. Under her tutelage, Esther would, by 1930, receive her high school and college degrees from Payne College in Augusta, Georgia. The school was founded for blacks by the local United Methodist Church during Jim Crow segregation. By 1930, Esther had married John Wesley Perry and became part of the Great Migration from Southern oppression to Northern opportunity. Their new home became Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. From that point on, Pittsburgh would become the northern destination for many a Holmes or Mack family member to move to or at least to visit. Esther earned her teaching degree license and taught in the Pittsburgh area, while John used his college education to earn a job at the post office. Evelyn also helped her sister Beulah. By 1920, Beulah had moved to Charleston to live with Evelyn's sister-in-law, Irene Castelow, and her husband, REC minister Richard A. Madison. He would minister at St. Luke, Holy Trinity, and other RE churches. Irene was a trained nurse and most likely mentored Beulah. She and her husband, William A. Holmes, would live with her sister-in-law until about 1925, when their twins were born. Beulah would go on to become a renowned nurse with 12 children, while William became a driver for Roper Hospital and a mortician. The following 1923 city directories show Beulah and William living with Irene and Richard at 91 Congress Street in Charleston. Evelyn becomes Aunt Miss. In 1925, while Esther was still living with Evelyn, another family member needed her help. Her younger brother Stephen's wife, Eva, passed away from tuberculosis and pneumonia in May. This left Stephen with 4-year-old daughter, Vera, and 2-year-old son, Lucius S. Stephen reached out to Evelyn and asked her to raise Vera. Evelyn and James became her foster parents. Vera would move to Augusta to live with her Aunt Miss and Aunt Esther. Evelyn is now Aunt Miss. 1930 Federal Census, 1940 Federal Census. Vera would go on to graduate from Penn College like her Aunt Esther, and later attended Lafayette University, a private college in eastern Pennsylvania. Around 1946, Vera married James L. Mechanic. She would use her degree and education to become a teacher at Burke and C.A. Brown High Schools in Charleston, South Carolina. Like Aunt Miss, Esther never had children of her own, so she helped in the rearing of nieces and nephews. In the 1950 census, you can see three of her sister Beulah's children, Sidney, Edith, and Ruth, visiting or living with Esther. Edith, Nita, spent considerable time with Aunt Esther in Pittsburgh, eventually moving there. After marrying Earl Henderson, she continued the love for family that Aunt Miss and Aunt Esther had shown her by inviting family members to visit or live in her home with her family. Another family member who lived or spent some time with Aunt Miss was Virginia, or commonly called Regina, daughter of Grace Leela Mack and Joseph Pinckney. She moved to Augusta to live with Aunt Miss after her mother passed in 1941. According to Aunt Miss, she raised an additional 11 other family members. Mack Family Story by Evelyn Mack Castelow. Another major contribution to the family by Aunt Miss was the Mack Family Story that she wrote in 1954, 2 years before she passed. Most enslaved families had their history passed down by word of mouth. Our written history by Aunt Miss provides a rare documented look into our past. The story begins in South Carolina during the early years of the Civil War. It begins with details of her father, DJ, his enslaved mother, Charlotte, enslaver father, George, and enslaver stepmother, Mary, who was also his grand aunt. The story continues to DJ's post-Civil War developmental years. She tells how Miss Mary's care for DJ during an illness strengthened Hattie G's desire to help people in the neighborhood, which she in turn passed on to her children. It flows into the early 1900s with the loving and fun times she and her siblings had growing up on the farm. This included some small mischievousness. She adds some traits to live by that the family learned. At the end, Aunt Miss tells the reader that their strong religious upbringings created ministers, deacons, a nurse, and strong involvement in the church. The end. Aunt Miss passed away on June 6, 1956, and was buried in the family plot in Mount Zion Cemetery, St. Stephen's, South Carolina. Aunt Miss will be remembered for two major reasons. First, she taught us to love and help family members when they are facing difficulties. And second, she left us the gift of a written history, a gift few Black families can claim. Thank you so very much, Aunt Miss. Happy Black History Month. This slideshow was written and researched by Arthur L. Holmes II.